Columbia Institute of Technology acknowledges that our campuses are located on the unceded traditional territories of the Coast Salish nations of Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh.
Good afternoon, I'm Caroline Doyle, and these are your BCIT News 3:30 updates. Selkirk College is among multiple institutions that have been affected financially after the federal government decreased the number of permits for international students. The college says it's losing one of its 3 campuses in Nelson, BC at the end of its academic year. The college says this comes after an unprecedented and sudden drop in tuition revenues. The Department of Fisheries and Oceans Canada says Hello Ferry struck a humpback whale in English Bay. Hello Ferry says their bridge team immediately initiated evasive actions and executed a crash stop maneuver and made the report. It was reported that the whale swam north after being struck, but there are no additional details released about its condition. BC Forest Minister Ravi Parmar says the BC forest industry workers need help now. Parmar wants to put pressure on Ottawa to speed up the distribution of the $1.2 billion allocated for softwood lumber industry support. Parmar says BC workers deserve the same treatment as workers in Ontario. On October 28th, a meeting is set to take place 3 months after a BC Supreme Court judge ruled that Cowichan tribes have the right to 7.5 square kilometers of land in Richmond. Richmond Mayor Malcolm Brody hopes the upcoming meeting in Richmond will bring more information to property owners affected by this ruling. Conservative Party of BC leader John Rustad says the question of private property ownership and Indigenous rights must be answered by the Supreme Court. Brody disagreed with the involvement of the Supreme Court, but says the decision needs to be appealed. The Premier of British Columbia, David Eby, spoke today at a conference in Victoria this morning. Here's what Eby had to say.
I share the concern of Mayor Brody about the implications of this decision. It's a big deal, and it's crucial for our economy, for just the basic economics of a family, that people understand their private property rights. That's the basis of how things work in the province. So clarity and resolution is urgently needed. And yes, in the appeal, of course, we are arguing to defend those private property rights of those homeowners and for certainty to ensure that businesses can make the decisions to invest that they need to make.
Diwali, the 5-day Festival of Lights, begins today. Local businesses in Burnaby are taking place in the celebrations. Our reporter Thomas Adams has more on how they are uniting the community.
6th Street in Burnaby is where many locals are coming to celebrate Diwali. The Festival of Light has become a staple for the people of Metro Vancouver, with many taking the time to acknowledge the event. Although Diwali is a Hindu celebration, in Vancouver, a large range of different people get involved with the culture. At the Sabzi Mandi Market in Burnaby, the staff are noticing many different backgrounds coming together to honor the event.
The backgrounds are different, but they are same. Like some are from Fiji, some are from Pakistan. Like there are 2 to 3 countries who celebrate this. So there are people coming. Even the Canadian people are also coming.
Festivities are continuing this week with restaurants and stores in the Burnaby area celebrating with locals. Thomas Adams, BCIT News.
In a statement released this morning, BC Premier David Eby says the celebration of Diwali honors the vibrant and diverse communities that make our province strong. And now in national news, Ontario Labour Minister David Piccini was in the hot seat today as politicians are back at Queen's Park for the first time in months. Opposition parties focused most of their questions on findings from a recent Ontario Auditor General report on the Skills Development Fund, in which is called neither fair, transparent, or accountable. Piccini brushed aside any connections between recipients of the funds and their political donation records.
People of Ontario are entitled to support whom they want, and they're supporting our party because they see that we have the backs of workers.
Media reports have found several instances of fund recipients being progressive conservative donors. 3 men in Winnipeg, Manitoba are charged with second-degree murder in the death of a woman who disappeared 5 years ago. RCMP say the suspects also face charges of offering an indignity to the human remains of Melinda Lynxleg. Sergeant Morgan Page says all of the accused knew the woman. She says the RCMP relied on countless police resources and thousands of hours of work.
These historical files require a great deal of support from the number of units that we have within the RCMP. Without the expertise from these units, we would not have been able to reach the point that we are today.
A statement from Lynxleg's family says the charges are a relief and they thank investigators for their work. A new Bank of Canada survey shows us U.S. tariffs are still on the minds of business and consumers. Greg Lord from the Canadian Press explains why.
The Bank of Canada's Business Outlook survey released this morning shows lingering questions about the trade dispute are holding many firms back from expanding their payrolls. The central bank's broad measure of business confidence has improved a bit from the second quarter of the year, but remains well below historical averages. Despite most exporters having tariff-free access to the United States, many firms in the steel and aluminum industries say they doubt that overseas markets will make up for lower U.S. sales. The Bank of Canada also released its consumer survey today, showing most Canadians feel a bit better about their financial health despite lingering tariff concerns. Craig Lord, The Canadian Press, Ottawa.
Now on to international news. 2 of U.S. President Donald Trump's envoys traveled to Israel today to reinforce the tenuous ceasefire that continues in Gaza. ABC's Tom Sufi-Burridge reports it comes a day after the fragile deal faced its first major flare-up.
The fragile truce between Israel and Hamas collapsing over the weekend during a nearly 12-hour period. The IDF accusing Hamas of killing 2 of its soldiers Sunday in a surprise attack from a tunnel. Hamas denying involvement. President Trump suggesting that might be true, but Israel retaliating, saying it targeted Hamas in a wave of airstrikes right across the Gaza Strip on Sunday. 44 Palestinians killed in the violence, according to the Hamas-run Gaza Health Ministry.
An anonymous Israeli security official says aid deliveries will resume today through multiple crossings after Israeli inspection, which is in line with the agreement. Now we'll move to sports and let's see what's happening there. 5 games are on the NHL schedule tonight, highlighted by an all-Canadian matchup in Calgary where the slumping Flames host the surging Winnipeg Jets. Calgary has dropped 5 straight while Winnipeg enters on a 4-game win streak. In Montreal, the Canadiens host the Sabres, who have won 2 in a row. Leila Fernandez of Laval, Quebec, faces Greece's Maria Sakkari today at the Pan Pacific Open in Tokyo. The Canadiens coming off her second title of the year after winning the Japan Women's Open in Osaka on the weekend. Also today, Toronto's Victoria Mboko meets Bianca Andreescu of Mississauga, Ontario in an all-Canadian first-round match. There are 2 NFL games tonight, including one in Detroit, where the Lions host the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Tampa Bay leads the NFC South, while Detroit is chasing Green Bay for top spot in the NFC North. In the late matchup, the Houston Texans visit the Seattle Seahawks. The Whitecaps take a hit after losing this weekend to FC Dallas. After an early red card in the 8th minute, sending off Matias Laborda, the Whitecaps couldn't find their footing, playing a man down, ultimately losing 2-1. Vancouver head coach Jesper Sørensen says he's still unsure whether defender Matias Laborda deserved to be ejected from the match.
Seeing it again, I think that it's a foul, but I think it's also maybe a hard call for a red card. But obviously, the guys who checked it at VAR and the referee felt it was a red card.
In Thomas Mueller's post-match reaction, he says the team had big chances despite the loss, and he also wasn't sure it had to be a red card. Sørensen says the Whitecaps will look into appealing the card and the accompanying suspension that would keep Laborda out of the team's first playoff game. The Toronto Blue Jays beat the Seattle Mariners in a 6-2 game in Game 6 of the American League Championship Series at Rogers Centre yesterday. The win sets up a nail-biting 7th game tonight in Toronto. Closing pitcher Jeff Hoffman threw 2 shutout innings to wrap up the victory. He says the Blue Jays need to keep things consistent in Game 7.
We just got to go out and put our best foot in front of us and do what we do, which is play clean, solid, fundamental baseball. Let the guys do their thing on the offensive side and get them back in the dugout as quick as possible on the defensive side.
Shane Bieber will start for Toronto tonight against Seattle's George Kirby. The winning team moves on to the World Series against the Dodgers. And more on Blue Jays and business. Food and drink while watching sports is a must for some fans. When love teams play, pubs may see an uptake in patrons. Our reporter Gabe Liesi tells more.
The Toronto Blue Jays are playing the Seattle Mariners tonight in Game 7 of the ALCS. Local pubs and restaurants have been noticing an uptick in customers throughout the Blue Jays' run in the postseason this year. Chris Gordon is the manager at Devil's Elbow Ale and Smokehouse in Vancouver, and he makes it clear how business success coincides with on-field success.
I'm definitely hoping for a Game 7 win in Toronto tonight for the Jays, that is. The further this all goes, the better.
The Jays would make a first trip back to the Fall Classic since 1993 with a win tonight. Businesses will continue to feel the economic bump. Gabe Liesi, BCIT News.
And now here's a quick weather update. So umbrellas are still in the forecast as rain continues to fall throughout this cloudy afternoon. Rain is predicted to continue throughout the week, so be prepared. Drive cautiously through changing road conditions. So make sure your windshields are working, your brakes are in good conditions, and stay safe out there for your fellow Metro Vancouverites. So thank you for joining me today for your news updates and your sports updates. Stay tuned tomorrow for more updates on sports. I'm Caroline Doyle, your host. Patrick McConnell is our producer for BCIT News.
Stay tuned for more on BCIT's 1680 The Crow.
I would recommend this program for anyone that isn't sure what kind of job they want in media, because you learn everything from like public relations to communications to video editing, like radio, TV. So you do get a lot of experience in all the different fields in media.